getting ready to play Norman Conquests. Yes, this is Volume 5 of Men of Iron, a game designed by Ralph Shelton, but originally the Men of Iron series was designed by Richard Berg. It's published by GMT Games, which was kind enough to send this to me. I'll put a link to my unboxing and introduction to it in the description down below. But since today is October 14th, well, at least I'm filming it before then and hopefully get this game played before then, but I'm going to post this on October 14th. So what happened on October 14th? I think some of you might know what happened on that date. Yes, this is the Battle of Hastings, which is one of the battles that is in Men of Iron Norman Conquests, as you would expect. So this is the scenario here. Zoom in on here. East Sussex, England, 14 October 1066. Historical background, after securing his position in Normandy, William II, Duke of Normandy, turned his attention to England. He had a claim to the throne as a cousin of the Saxon King Edward the Confessor. When Edward died, William saw the opportunity to push his claim. He gathered an army, ships, and supplies and waited for the wind to change. In late September of 1066, the wind changed and he sailed across the channel and invaded England. William's landing at Pevensey went unchallenged. He landed just 4 days after the Battle of Stamford Bridge. A new Saxon king, Harold II, heard of the landings and the Norman fleet's subsequent move up the coast to Hastings and its raiding there. He moved south to London and arrived within 2 weeks. He then moved to intercept the Duke of Normandy. Harold, perhaps buoyed by his victory at Stamford Bridge, using surprise, decided to move quickly rather than waiting for reinforcements. Harold chose the site near Hastings as assembly point for his army. William must have heard of their arrival and moved to attack him. The two armies met on the hills about 9 miles from Hastings. The Saxon army was still arriving when the Normans formed up for battle. Harold chose to go on the defensive, probably hoping the Normans would not attack until more of his troops showed up. The Saxons formed a shield wall and waited for the Normans on the hill. It isn't clear whether this was Sinlac Hill or Caldbeck Hill. The Norman archers moved up and loosed arrows ineffectively at the Saxons, and then the Normans' infantry moved up and engaged. Either the Britons on the left broke and ran during the fighting, or less likely they were part of a feigned retreat. Either way, the Saxon right ranks and pursued the fleeing Normans. So William was able to stop the rout and launched a charge with his cavalry in the center that killed many of the pursuing Saxons at the pause. A pause may have occurred in the battle at this point. In the next phase of the battle, the Norman men-at-arms moved up, attacked perhaps in concert with the infantry. Harold appeared to have moved towards the Saxon right and into the front lines where he was killed. He took an arrow to the eye, I believe. This would lead eventually to the rout of Saxon army with the housecarls supposedly standing over the body of their king, refusing to surrender, and eventually all being killed. So this is the setup. Here are all the forces. The Norman army, the Saxon army shows you what you need to do here. And there's an optional deployment in here because there's a question of which hill. The historic scenario in here sets up on Battle Hill here, but you have Caldbeck Hill right up there, and there's an alternate setup here in the scenario to set up on that hill and see how this plays out. But I think this is the historic scenario is, I think, based on, I guess, the most prevailing story of the time. And here's a setup map as well to show where your forces are at. So this is the Men of Iron series, which is kind of a simpler version of the Great Battles of History, if you're familiar with that, which deals with ancients. The Men of Iron really deals with medieval times. And it has some of the same concepts as far as activation and command range that are on the leaders. As we can see, there's a leader right here. You've got his activation is that 3, the range is the 5, and then this leader's movement is 5 as well. You see that he has a color band along with his battle. The unit or forces are called battles, not to be confused with this battle. But so when he activates, he can move all these yellow banded pieces, and the same with this color. The coordinated colors get to activate, and you can kind of try to steal activations or keep continuation of activations. Some of those are the same concepts that were in like Great Battles History, which was another Richard Berg design that he partnered up with Mark Herman. So anyway, this system again is a little bit easier and doesn't have a lot of the nuance and a lot of the different rules, but it is still relatively complex. The rules here are 28 pages, of course. Really about 22 to 23 pages. You get special rules at 23 pages. So, and again, it has a lot of the same concepts, but not all of them as that more detailed Ancients version. Anyway, enough of all that. I'm going to get to playing this. I'll probably do just an after action after I get done, unless I do something interesting and want to share that with you. But this is kind of the setup. The Normans are in the south facing north, and they're getting ready to attack on this hill. The Saxons have the high ground, and they're set up in a shield wall, which gives them some defensive posture. And I don't have enough shield wall counters, so I kind of shared them amongst units. The only units that can have form a shield wall are pike, which these are all pike, except for a few archers in here, and unmounted infantry, and then you've got you've got unmounted cavalry. You've got some mounted units here on the Saxon side, and they're kind of this back row here, and I put the leaders with them. There's no mounted units on the Saxon side. It's all pike and archer, and with a few axe, which I think are the housecarls, are those axemen up there. So not pretty close to their king, which is right there. Anyway, I'll get at this and let you know how things are going when I get done. Take care. Hello all, I'm back playing a scenario from Norman Conquest, Conflicts of the Normans and their successors, 1053 to 1265, and I was playing the Hastings scenario, the Battle of Hastings, which took place on this date, the date of posting, October 14th in 1066. And I finished up with this scenario, and if you're not familiar with Men of Iron, most of the scenarios you play to based on a flight point track. What is flight points? Well, every time a unit is either eliminated or is retired means that you get the combat result, and so you move the unit back to its nearest to its standard. You get 1 point for retired. You get 2 points for most other units. You get 3 points, 2 points for eliminating most other units. You get 3 points for eliminating a named leader or a mounted unit. And you get 5 points if you eliminate a king. And there's only really one king here. It's who survived, but in the real battle took an arrow to the eye and died, and that was really kind of the end of the Saxons in this battle and in England as far as ruling. William the Conqueror in history won this battle and went on to, take control of England, hence the name Conqueror. That didn't happen. Well, the victory happened in this scenario, but not the death. The death was reversed. Good old Duke William here, he died in this scenario. About 3/4 of the way through, maybe a little bit closer towards the end, he took one for the team and was eliminated. And when that happened, that left his units, he basically had the center of the Norman attack. That left them leaderless, and so when you don't have a leader, you get a replacement leader normally, but there is no replacement for William here. See, no replacement. So they basically, the only time they could activate is on a free activation. So it had to be when the turn came back, or the activation came back to the Normans, you could activate and do something with them. Otherwise, they're just kind of out there. So how did this battle develop? I was talking about flight points and how it ended. Basically, you accumulate flight points. Each scenario has their own. In this scenario, the Normans had a flight total of 28, and the Saxons had one of 20. And so what you're going to do at the end of each activation, you'll roll a die. You'll add whatever level of flight points that they're at. And if you meet that number, 20 for the Saxons and 28 for the Normans, then the game's over, and that unit loses, or that side loses. And that's what happened here. The Saxons reached 20, so it was going to be automatic roll on there. The Normans got up to 12. They really didn't lose a lot of units. They got points by replacement. They got flight points by replacement. They only lost one mounted unit, and then, of course, they lost William. Whereas the Saxons had quite a bit of units eliminated. Here's all the stack of units eliminated, and had a few, as you can see, they're like 4 retired there near their standards. The way that you get retired units back into the game, so to speak, you have to activate the standard. If you activate the standard, then you can move the standard, and you can also activate the units that are retired there. So again, let's go back to, that's how this ended. Let's go back to how it developed. There was a attack in the middle that pretty much was kind of stalled because of their shield wall. All the pikemen on the Saxon side were in the shield wall, and this one kind of ran into that wall and stopped. Over here on the Norman left flank, they got some traction and were able to really, that's where most of the eliminations were for the Saxons, was on this side, and they were slowly kind of pushed them back to this stream here, and eliminated the units on that side. And actually, some of these units actually kind of turned in a little bit, as you can see here, and we're starting to threaten the center. On this side, it was kind of a little bit more damage than what happened in the center, but not as much as what happened on the Norman left. As you can see, there were still some shield walls in place here, and even at the leader on that side. This one was kind of, there was a little bit of a flanking over here, but they ended up getting demoralized once they got close to this shield wall over here. Really, the Saxons kind of held out, and that was kind of part of the strategy. I kind of took a different tact in doing this. There is a time track. This is one of those scenarios that has a time track where the Normans only have, starts off at 15, so they have 15 times or 15 time units to get victory, or they automatically lose. So if the time goes from 15 to 0, then the Saxons automatically win. The way that you move time, I think each different scenarios have different ways that time track moves. The only way I saw the time move in this scenario is you pass. So when the activation switches to the Saxons, if they pass, then they can move that time increment down. So I did that quite a bit. The time got down to 9. So, not quite halfway, but pretty close. But when you're doing that, you're passing, so you're allowing, the Normans to keep smashing against the shield wall, to keep, taking out some of the units. And that's why there was so much elimination, because I probably passed too many times and probably should have dropped the shield wall and then did a counterattack. Eventually did drop the shield wall on these. You also lose the shield wall when you have to retreat. When you get disordered, you don't automatically lose the shield wall, but when you have to retreat, you lose the shield wall. So that's how it ended up. So historically, one of the two big leaders died. So that was historically accurate. It was the other one, and which leads to a kind of interesting, what would history have happened? The Normans won this battle as they did in history, but without William, how would the history of England developed? I mean, pretty different, I would imagine. I really like the system. I like the Men of Iron system. It's, as I mentioned in before, that this is kind of a simpler version of Great Battles of History. And every time I play it, I kind of forget how simple it is. There's still some complexity here. There's a decent-sized rule book, but it really boils down to three major attacks, and really and two of them are about the same. You have fire results, so that's all archers. There's not a ton of archers in this scenario, but you've got to get close enough in range and then fire away. And so that's one type of combat. Now, they're very susceptible once you get close to shock attack, which is the other main combat. There's a lot of shock going on because that's what there's mostly pike units in this one, and so that's what their combat's going to be. The third kind of combat is charge, and that has to be mounted, and they have to have space to charge. So there has to be an open space to get to the unit to do the charge. And then the combat is, I say it's kind of similar to shock. There's a whole separate chart to it, but then once you kind of get it close to units, you're going to be in the shock category. So shock is really the most prevalent. Charge, if you have mounted, comes into play, but you have to kind of maneuver to get back to do another charge, and then fire is just going to be limited to archer units. So not a lot of different charts. You roll and you see what the result is right there. That's it. And there's not a lot of information on the counters. You have what you need. So here's all the train charts and stuff. So a relatively straightforward system. You have, just like you have in Great Battles, you have this comparison of arms to get a modifier, and that's for, that you get that for shock predominantly. Very straightforward system. I really like it. I really like how it plays. So this was an interesting battle. There's a lot of replayability here, because I think if I played it again, I might try to do something different with the Saxons and see how that plays out. So there you have it. Just to add a little bit of extra book to this, here is the Osprey series, The Fall of Saxon England, and is part of the Osprey Battle series. So it's a campaign series, Hastings 1066. And I kind of like using these as reference and look at these before I play the game. And then I actually look at it kind of as I'm playing the game sometime to see how things are going on and what's happening. So don't know if you use these for that, but I kind of like having these. So here's kind of the setup of the battle, which kind of shows you where they were at 9 a.m. And then you have these little bit more detailed looks that kind of show how the battle progresses, with some notes on the side and showing how it's going on the hill there, which is kind of where we're set up here on this map. And then here it is at, what time is it now here? About 1600 hours. So we're at 4 o'clock here. Here's where we're at. And it's actually, the view kind of shifts to this way. Which kind of looks very similar to what I had there, with, definitely the curving around the flanks. I definitely had that here. I didn't have the break in the middle, though. And partly because of that, because, William died. And so he wasn't able to push that attack in the middle. So there you have it. Got a little bit of book report to go along with it. So that is my report on Norman Conquest. If you like the Men of Iron series, this is number 5 in that series, volume 5 right there. Take a look at this. Definitely it really does a nice expansion to the system and to these battles. If you're interested in Norman Conquest and Norman battles, again, I recommend this Norman Conquest as well, because you've got some good battles in here. And, of course, one of the most famous ones, Hastings. Thanks all. Take care. Thanks for watching.